So now that I've been getting back into comics a little bit, I'm actually completing the Venom and Gwenpool and Dark Knight series before I start reading them. I've started reading the X-Men Gold series, not far enough along to really have an opinion yet. And I don't think I'll ever really review these. Maybe I'll share my opinions or overview them, but I don't consider myself to be, at least at this point, good enough an expert enough to really say you should or shouldn't read a specific book. And I don't think many people really should do that anyway. But I was thinking, it just came to me in a brief moment of geniusness, of course. Marvel is shrinking in sales. It still represents, the largest chunk in maybe dollar share. But you have to also keep in mind that, that's like saying you're like the smartest kid on the short bus or something. It's really not that. I wouldn't be that proud of it. They're a huge company with a lot of weight behind them. They have to move units in order to keep these books going. You see that from why so many books make it to episode or I think I'm always going to call them episode, but issue 5 or 6 and then get canceled. I come from a time where the specific writer of a book, they weren't really required to promote it. They didn't have a reach. They didn't have tools like Facebook and YouTube and specifically now Twitter. They didn't have these tools at their disposal. And now, in order to keep comics selling, other than the mainstays like X-Men or something like that, they really require the entire team on that book to be in lockstep promoting that particular book on Twitter and Facebook. It's a virtual certainty to me that without extra promotion, an even larger portion of these new books just wouldn't make it. The trouble is, and I think there are people involved from both Marvel and DC that get involved in this, but Marvel seems to be the worst of it. None of them really dedicate that much time to their books. So the problem is, you wouldn't have a platform, you wouldn't have an audience if you didn't tell everyone that you wrote for Marvel or you're an editor for Marvel. You wouldn't have 10,000, 20,000 followers if you were just you on Twitter, right? I think we can all agree with that. A lot of these editors and writers, not all, but many of them didn't earn their following like a YouTuber might. People don't follow me on Twitter because anyone told them to. They've seen my content and then they decide. So people follow these writers because they're associated with the company that they like. And it's just a natural thing. At least until Twitter finally dies, which hopefully will be in the relatively near future, although probably won't ever totally die. But so you would expect, I work for clients. I have my own company, but because I work for clients, we have a mutual interest in that client's success. And this is something that is true in almost any business, especially with people that have a direct impact on it, right? So I run their marketing campaigns, and the success of their marketing campaigns gives them more money to hire more people, to expand, to spend more money, and to ultimately also pay me more money. So the better I do for them, the better for everybody, and vice versa, right? They give me a better product, it makes my job easier. It's all connected. It seems like the comic industry, I'm sure it's not the only one like this, but it seems like the comic industry has people involved in it that don't care. They got a job as an editor for Marvel or DC or something, and they really don't give two rips about whether or not the company succeeds. I sincerely believe that. And you can tell this because the platform in which writing for Marvel or DC or being an editor at DC, being one of these diversity hires from the Milkshake crew that nobody knew before they put editor at Marvel in their Twitter bio, use their platform to spout just about everything but comic books. And you don't even have to dig deep. Now, these are some of the worst offenders. But this is just from today, right? You look at Dan Slott. I wonder why your book was canceled. Can't go one day without screeching about Trump. Trump. Here's social justice about blocking people. Hey, there's kids' Marvel costumes at Disney. That's cool. Comment about blocking people. Political comment. Political comment. I mean, that's all this guy talks about, right? Maybe you should worry about your book not selling. Nick Spencer, same thing. 30,000 followers. You know, you go back. This is from a couple days ago. Secret Empire. He does a little bit of talking about it, but, you know, spoiler, women, look for better work-life balance. Strap in. Google memo. Quote about the programmer cries reverse discrimination. Like, get out of... I mean, maybe you should talk about, you know, your comic. Although he does here, he's retweeting stuff about Captain America, so that's good to see. Here, Magdalene Visaggio, new DC employee and probably instant regret hire from them. Here's 2 hours ago. Trump. Trump. Republicans. Trump. North Korea. I mean, how about writing about your company? So I have this bold idea. If you're Marvel and DC and you really care about sales, I think you might want to consider just a test. 6 months. If you write for us, you're, you know, whatever, stay off Twitter. For 6 months. Let's see what happens to sales. You can tweet about your business. You can tweet about your book. But can't associate yourself with Twitter or with Marvel or DC. I know this is really unlikely, but let's just pretend. Let's just have a thought experiment together. Could you imagine? I mean, how is this crazy person verified? She has 8,000 followers. I mean, she's not even relevant. But anyway, just stay off Twitter. Marvel writers and editors and nobodies, because generally it's like the nobodies at the company that are do the most screeching, and then they get held up. The good people aren't on Twitter like screeching about politics every day, but these few crazy people get used as an example, and then that gets projected on all of Marvel or all of DC. You get this crazy Magdalene out there, or Nick Spencer or Dan Slott, and they become the face of your company. And if all you do is tweet about politics, it doesn't matter if we agree, right? We don't have to agree on politics. We buy comic books. One thing I'm sure we can agree on is that when you divide, if all your writers are talking about Trump, there's at least some percentage of comic book writers that voted for Trump. I happen to be one of them. I also voted for Obama before that. I'm not really married to either party, and I think most people are that way. However, when I have to read about writers like constantly screeching about the guy I voted for, it's not going to make... Do you think that will make me more likely or less likely to want to buy their book? And even if that percentage isn't 50-50, let's say you told me, you know, only 30% of comic book... I mean, you didn't see comic book writers screeching about Barack Obama, so you can't go back, you can't say, well, they're always tweeting about politics. No, that's not how it was. It's that they literally can't deal with taking the loss. They took the L like almost a year ago now. And they just can't handle it. And I don't really care what the people's politics are who write my kids' books, you know, my comics books. And if they weren't screeching on Twitter all the time, I wouldn't see people making videos about it. I wouldn't be making this video. Instead, good comics would thrive and bad comics would still die. It's just a thought experiment maybe Marvel should consider trying in some way. See what happens. It'd be interesting.